आदरणीय विश्वधर्मी ऑनरेबल डॉक्टर विश्वनाथ कराड़ साहब का आगमन ज्ञानेश्वर हॉल की तरफ हो रहा है। मैं सभी से निवेदन करूंगा कि जब वे अंदर प्रस्थान करें तो खड़े रहकर तालियों के साथ हमारे मेहमान ऑनरेबल डॉक्टर वेदाभ्यास कुंदू जी का और विश्वधर्मी डॉक्टर विश्वनाथ जी कराड़ जी का स्वागत करें। And they have entered. We will request all the audience to please give a standing ovation, a standing welcome ovation to revered Honorable Dr. Vishwanath D. Karar Sahab, साथ ही Honorable Dr. वेदाभ्यास कुंदू जी। आज के चर्चा सत्र के प्रमुख वक्ता डॉक्टर वेदाभ्यास कुंदू। मैं साथ ही प्रार्थना करूंगा डॉक्टर मिलिंद पात्रे जी से, डॉक्टर धीरज सिंह साहब से और डॉक्टर अनामिका विश्वास मैडम से टू प्लीज टेक द पोजीशन ऑन द डायस। डॉक्टर सौरभ चतुर्वेदी जी अगर सभा में उपस्थित हैं। My dear friends, a very good evening. Saint Shree Dnyaneshwara and Saint Shree Tukaram Endowment Lecture Series Trust, Pune, World Peace Center, Alandi, MIT's MIT World Peace University, Pune, India, इन सभी के संयुक्त तत्वाधान में 27वें एंडोवमेंट लेक्चर सीरीज एंड ओरिएंटेशन वर्कशॉप 2022 में आप सभी का स्वागत है। आज 5वां दिन, सायंकाल सत्र 28 नवंबर 2022। नॉलेज, knowing a tomato is a fruit is knowledge. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. दोस्तों, हिंसा और अहिंसा पे हम कई बातें करते हैं, लेकिन एक हिंसा ये भी होती है जब एक सभागृह के अंदर हम जोर से कहें बात करें और हमारी वक्तव्य की वजह से किसी को दिक्कत हो। एक सादी सी गाड़ी अगर किसी कार के सामने हम पार्क कर देते हैं और वो कार वाला अपनी गाड़ी नहीं निकाल पा रहा है, इसे भी हिंसा ही कहा जाता है। इसकी जानकारी मुझे बिल्कुल नहीं थी। एक अवेयरनेस सेशन में 2 अक्टूबर के दिन जब मैं वो अटेंड कर रहा था, तब मुझे समझ आया कि हिंसा और अहिंसा का सही मायनों में परिभाषा क्या है। इसी तरह भाषा ज्ञान होना ये नॉलेज है, लेकिन किसी की भावनाओं को आहत ना करते हुए उचित शब्दों का प्रयोग करना ये हमारी विवेक बुद्धि है, ये हमारी समझदारी है। और इतने बेहतरीन थीम को, इस टॉपिक को यहाँ आज हम लोग लेकर आए हैं आपके साथ। आज के इस कार्यक्रम की हम लोग शुरुआत करेंगे सबसे पहले विश्व शांति प्रार्थना के साथ। एक ऐसी प्रार्थना जो किसी भी धर्म, जाति और पंथ से ऊपर उठकर ऊपर वाले के द वन क्रिएटर, एक ब्रह्मांड नायक के लिए हम लोग प्रार्थना करेंगे। फॉर ऑल द ब्लेसिंग्स आई विल रिक्वेस्ट एवरीवन टू प्लीज राइज एट योर प्लेसेस एंड आई रिक्वेस्ट द टेक्निकल टीम टू प्लीज प्ले द वर्ल्ड पीस प्रेयर।
प्रतिपाद्या जय जय स्वसंवेद्या आत्मरूपा देवातुति गणेषु सकलार्थमति प्रकाशु म्हणे निवृत्तिदासु अवधारी गोदी गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
थैंक यू दोस्तों। ध्यान की शक्ति किसी सिद्धार्थ को गौतम बुद्ध बनाती है। कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत करने से पहले, या फिर मैं कहूँ कि इस ज्ञान सत्र का आस्वाद लेने से पहले थोड़ा सा ध्यान करते हैं। एक संगीतमय ध्यान की तरफ हमें लेकर जाएंगी योगा डिपार्टमेंट से आई प्रोफेसर मृण्मयी गोडबोले जी।
Thank you, sir. Dear all, Om has a powerful vibration that helps us to improve the mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. It is also known as the sound of the universe and helps us in meditation, relaxation, healing, calming, and stress relieving. It reminds me about the story of healing qualities of the nada or music. Once, the Omkar Nath Thakur, head of the music department in Hindu Vishwavidyalaya Kashi, went to Italy. When he was practicing, he was doing riyaz at 3 a.m. The watchman of the hotel went to sleep, and the manager of hotel woke him and asked him why he slept on duty. So the watchman confessed it's because of hearing the music. After knowing this, the manager requested Omkar Nath Ji Thakur to sing for Mussolini, the dictator of Italy, as he was suffering from sleep disorder. And surprisingly, Mussolini also fell asleep within 10 minutes because of the soothing voice of the Omkar Nath Thakur Ji. So that is the power of the music. Similarly, one should take the benefit of Omkar sadhana for any kind of health issues. So everyone here is requested to participate in the Omkar meditation. Gently close your eyes. Please don't sleep. Relax. Sit in a comfortable posture. And may I now request our technical team to play Omkar. Gently rub your palms, feel the energy, and open your eyes gently. Thank you so much.
बहुत धन्यवाद प्रोफेसर मृण्मयी गोडबोले जी। आगे बढ़ते हुए पहले मैं बुलाना चाहूँगा डॉक्टर अनामिका बिस्वास जी को, जो कि डायरेक्टर हैं स्कूल ऑफ सस्टेनेबल स्टडीज़ की, फॉर द इंट्रोडक्टरी रिमार्क एंड वेलकम स्पीच।
Good evening, everyone. I would like to, first of all, as we have started with this beautiful session, would like to thank you, Professor Ravi and Professor from Yoga Department for giving such a wonderful experience of Omkar. I would like to thank all the dignitaries sitting, or would like to welcome all the dignitaries sitting on the dais, Dr. and Professor Vishwanath Karad ji, जिनके छत्र छाया में ये इतना खूबसूरत हमारा कार्यक्रम का आयोजन किया जा रहा है। आई वुड ऑल्सो लाइक टू वेलकम श्री कुंडू जी, जो डॉक्टर कुंडू वेद व्यास कुंडू जी, जो गांधी स्मृति से आए हैं और पिछले 20 साल से नॉन वायलेंट कम्युनिकेशन में काम कर रहे हैं। ही इज़ अ नोन, वेरी वेल नोन, ग्लोबली नोन स्कॉलर ऑन नॉन वायलेंट कम्युनिकेशन. He has been associated with Gandhi Smriti and Darshan Smriti, Ministry of Culture, New Delhi. He has been associated as a program officer there. His expertise lies in multiple dimensions of Gandhian philosophy, non-violent communication, Gandhian model of mediation, literacy for peace, non-violent conflict resolution, and human interconnectedness. He has also been, developing a lot of programs and courses in these areas which are focused on non-violent communication. He has been coordinating and organizing various initiatives for the same, nationally and internationally. He has also been associated with several central government programs, state government programs, and which includes judiciary, police, and armed forces, and universities and colleges. It is indeed a pleasure to know that this subject of non-violence is being taught to none other but the police and armed forces as well. Of course, our young generation definitely needs it, but knowing that we are discussing and we are deliberating on this subject through Dr. Ved Vyas Kunduji, these subjects with the forces as well. He has also published his articles in journals and many chapters in books, nationally and internationally. And in 2020, nobody can forget, and we can never forget and can never, thank any less or more for the these COVID warriors. Shri Kunduji has been awarded this Corona Warrior Award by the Journalists Association of Delhi for his contribution in promoting non-violent communication during this pandemic era. So I would like to welcome sir, and I would like to request with my this small brief introduction about sir to please enlighten us about this program, sir, your subject. Thank you, sir.
दोस्तों, मैं सबसे पहले निवेदन करूंगा विश्वधर्मी ऑनरेबल डॉक्टर विश्वनाथ डी करार साहब से कि आज के हमारे प्रमुख वक्ता डॉक्टर वेद व्यास कुंदू जी का स्वागत सत्कार करें। I also request all the dignitaries on the dais to please join Honorable Dr. Vishwanath Karar sir to felicitate Dr. Veda Vyas Kundu, globally reputed scholar on non-violent communications, Senior Program Officer, Gandhi Smriti and Darshan Samiti, Ministry of Culture, New Delhi. दोस्तों, अब मैं आमंत्रित करता हूं आज के हमारे प्रमुख वक्ता आज की थीम है नॉन वायलेंट कम्युनिकेशन फॉर हार्मोनियस को एग्जिस्टेंस. प्लीज पुट योर हैंड्स टुगेदर फॉर डॉक्टर वेदाभ्यास कुंदू.
Respected Professor Dr. Vishwanath Karad, sir, it's such a... Okay. Thank you. Respected Honorable Professor Dr. Vishwanath Karad, sir, Professor Dheeraj Singh ji, Professor Milind Patre, Professor Saurabh Chaturvedi, Professor Anamika Bishwas, and Professor Ravi Sahu, and all the honorable faculty members and the students here. It is such a great honor that I've been invited here, and I really feel profoundly from the bottom of my heart that I could come here and really share my small little work on non-violent communication with all of you. Also, I thank my guru, Professor Priyankar Upadhyay sir, who will be coming tonight, I think, and he has inspired me to do a lot of work, and we do a lot of work together, and also importantly, he requested me to come here. Non-violent communication, as we were meditating now, and I remembered those beautiful words of the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, peace within oneself, peace in the world. Unless there is peace within oneself, how can we work for peace in the world? Non-violent communication. Respected members, like I am from Delhi, and every year during the winters, especially now already the things are getting bad in terms of pollution. What happens is that we have a lot of problems of breathing, because of the serious level of pollution. Also think of a situation when you might have had a food that was spoiled. You might have some food poisoning, things like that, digestion problem. So the food that we take in or the air that we breathe in are so very important, because it helps completely and directly links to our well-being, to a healthy ecosystem. Similarly, communication. Communication is like a nourishment. You see, what we intake or what we give really is and directly links to our overall well-being. A healthy communication ecosystem is so very important for our well-being and happiness. Think of a situation where we might have a fight, because conflicts are something which is an organic part of our life. We are all human beings. There will be conflicts in our life, but how we resolve them? If we are aggressive, if you're fighting it out with terse words, abusive words, possibly at the end of the day, you will find yourself to be in a situation where you will have a lot of stress. It really doesn't help you. But think how you resolve a particular conflict or a dispute using most use of words, a healthy communication ecosystem. So, this journey today, this small little journey that we are going to embark upon to try and understand how important it is, let us start with there is a small PowerPoint presentation. How do we? Okay. Okay. So in fact, this particular program on non-violent communication, we have been doing in Gandhi Smriti for a long time. And as ma'am rightly pointed out, we have been doing with the judicial officers, with lawyers, with police, with teachers, with students, whole lot. Because communication is something like, we cannot not communicate. So in that context, how we communicate is so very important, and especially in today's situation where many of us feel because of a lot of pressures all around, we find ourselves being very aggressive, we overreact, and so in that context, non-violent communication becomes very important. Let me start this presentation with this beautiful quote of the Mahatma: "The world will live in peace only when the individuals composing it make up their minds to do so. Very, very important. Each one of us have the responsibility of contributing towards a culture of peace. So, it's very simple. Our communication helps mold our realities, our perspectives and emotions. It makes us feel connected to each other. And in fact, communication is a reflection of the inner workings of our minds. When we talk of communication, the most primary form of communication is our thought. So if our thoughts are impure, if our thoughts are dysfunctional, then it creates a lot of problem. So right from our thoughts to our verbal communication, to our non-verbal communication, everything is equally important. As Lord Buddha had said, the words have the power, both the power to destroy and heal. When words are both true and kind, they can change the world. Because the words that we are using is so very important. You see, how you engage with a person, how you communicate with a person is extremely critical. That's why when we have these sessions with different institutions, we request institutions to develop a whole structure, a non-violent communication ecosystem in institutions where conflicts, disputes can be resolved in a most non-violent manner, and it becomes so very important. So right from the individual level to the institutional level, inculcation of non-violent communication as a practice becomes such a healthy thing. It reduces stress. In fact, we could reflect on this very important point. Words hold power that can be used to instigate or neutralize any given experience. They can be used as weapons, either offense or defense. We need to be aware of the energy that our language, our words hold, and use them for the greater good. In fact, key to non-violent communication is how we reframe from the usual way that we talk. I remember having a session with judicial officers and lawyers of one of the district courts of Delhi. After 1 month, I went back to have a feedback session with them. The president of the Bar Association, you see, we all know how lawyers and advocates are very aggressive in their courtroom in the argument before the bench. So this person who was the president of the Bar Association of that court, he said that when we talked about the strategy, that the strategies you talked about of non-violent communication, I started using them consciously in my arguments before the bench. And he said that, क्योंकि जो बात मेरे को कहना है वो तो कहूँगा, मगर जिस तरह से कहूँगा, that can make a greater impact. And he says that, he told me that 1 महीने का मेरा experience है, ये मेरे को लगता है कि ये जो strategies आप लोगों ने discuss किया, हम लोगों ने discuss किया, उससे बेहतर तरीके से मैं अपना argument को पेश कर सकता हूँ. So just it is way on how we reframe from the usual way that we talk. Here I would like to give you an example on how important non-violent communication is on trust building, on mutual respect, and how we connect with others. You see, a very simple, mundane example. You see, one of my friend, his name is Dharmacharya Shantam Seth. Probably every one of us heard of the famous novelist Vikram Seth, his brother. So he's a good friend of mine. So once I was at his home, and he had to send a bundle of courier. So generally we will call the driver and give the money, and that's the end of it. So he calls his driver, please mark the words that he uses. So he calls his driver and he says, Abhi aap busy to nahi hai. So he said no, so he comes. So again, we will give the money and the courier packet, and that's it. So but he said, just mark the word he's used. Agar abhi aap jayenge, aapko kasht to nahi hoga. See, he is the boss and the driver. So the very way we talk, he wants the courier to be delivered, but the way he talks, it evokes great respect from the other person. And my own experience suggests that when we use some of these tools, you actually are able to connect with the other person in a greater way. This is my own personal experience, I can suggest. So, let us see why do we need a strong foundation for a non-violent communication ecosystem. In this, what we do is, there are different schools of thought Of course, non-violent communication has been very much part of the Indian tradition. Look, I've written quite a lot on how it emerges from the Veda and the Upanishads, the Purans, then the Buddhist tradition, the whole idea of the right eightfold path, the right speech, then the Jain philosophy. So it has been part of the Indian tradition. Of course, there are a lot of people in the Western countries, their own tradition they have put. Here, we have been trying to look forward with the Gandhian principles, the whole idea of non-violent communication. And it's very simple. The 5 pillars of Gandhian non-violence are the simple foundational stone of non-violent communication, we believe. The first is respect. If I respect you, you respect me, then even if we have differences, we can easily handle that differences in a much greater way. And greater respect leads to greater understanding. We all have different point of views. You see, we are all humans. We are all different in some way or the other. But when we respect each other, then even if we have differences, we have a greater understanding of each other's point of view. And when we have greater understanding of each other's point of view, it leads to greater acceptance of each other's positions. Because again, think of a situation when we have a tiff of dispute with a friend. Many times what happens is that we have that quote unquote ego issues. We feel we are correct and the other person is wrong, isn't it? Most of the time that happens. We are all human beings. So, but when we respect each other and thereby try to understand each other, it helps in accepting each other's position. And when we are able to accept each other's position, then it helps in easy and amicable and constructive resolution of disputes. Of course, appreciation, positive appreciation. Friends, like we are living in a situation where we are fed with so much of negative news and negativity is all around. Like you get up in the morning, especially during the COVID times, you open the WhatsApp and so many negative news we see every day, every fourth. But have we lost the art and science of positive appreciation? There are so many positive things that are happening around us. But many of us, we try to get overwhelmed by the negativities. And because of that, we try to forget the positives. But if we start understanding the art and science of positive appreciation, much of the negativities that are happening around, we will be able to overcome that. So positive appreciation. Say for instance, I'm very angry. And what happens is that if I start overreacting, then it becomes a problem. But if I open the window and see the beautiful flowers around, slowly and slowly the anger comes down and how we react to the other person becomes so very important. And of course, the last one is compassion, understanding the suffering of others. So very important. So these 5 pillars of Gandhian non-violence are definitely important. And these are very basic principles of life, of human values, of human nature. And if we can, inculcate them, if we can assimilate them, a lot of things can happen. Now let us try to explore on what exactly is non-violent communication. Let me tell you, there might be, again, as I said, so many different ideas and schools of thought of non-violent communication. But one of the best explanation, I feel, comes from, he is no more, he is a very senior Gandhian, Natwar Thakkarji. He was from Gujarat, and he, in the height of Naga insurgency in 1950s, he went all the way to Nagaland and started the Nagaland Gandhi Ashram. And in fact, I had the honor of having a dialogue with him on this whole idea of non-violent communication, where he gives his explanation of non-violent communication using the Gandhian principles. So he says, in fact, he was so concerned, he passed away in 2018. So when I was doing this dialogue with him, he was very concerned on so much of aggressiveness in the society per se, at every level, whether in schools we find, students hurling abuses at their teachers. There were so many instances of school students beating up their teachers, so on and so forth. So he was so concerned, he felt that we need to be non-violent communication literate. That means we need to develop critical understanding of non-violent communication and try to inculcate and assimilate and nurture in our daily lives. So he said non-violent communication literacy would mean how our communication efforts should be non-violent, how our ability and capacity to communicate not only with ourselves, but with our family and society be non-violent in all aspects, and overall, how the entire process of communication, whether between individuals, groups, communities, and the world at large should be non-violent in nature. This would entail deep understanding of the art and science of non-violence and its centrality in all our actions. It's not just verbal and non-verbal communication. Non-violent communication literacy would also include whether our thoughts and ideas are non-violent or not. So it is a holistic approach. When we are talking of the Gandhian approach to non-violent communication, it is a holistic approach. It's not just a human-to-human communication, but also our symbolic communication with the nature and our symbolic communication with all other living beings. And that becomes very, very important in the context of today's situation of climate change and other issues. Just some months back, the ecological threat report came, and the 2020 Human Development Report, which talked about the human epoch, the Anthropocene, and how human activities are destroying the different fragile ecosystems. So our symbolic communication with the nature also has to be non-violent. We can't be violent with nature. We can't be violent with the environment that we stay in. Also, we can't be violent with other living beings. That's so very important. If you remember the famous British primatologist, Professor Jane Goodall, she, at the time of the COVID-19 when it started, she said how human activities are destroying the habitat of the wildlife, and how the wildlife population are coming closer to the human habitat, and so that is resulting in greater transmission of these viruses. So our symbolic communication with the other living beings are also equally important, and also which Natwa Thakkar sir was talking about, the communication with ourselves. In fact, possibly many of us might have realized during the course of when we are very angry, when we are very stressful, our self-talk and our inner dialogue becomes dysfunctional. We talk, probably hurl abuses with ourselves, and say also our imagined interactions or imagined dialogue with people with whom we are having a tiff, it becomes very dysfunctional. And it becomes, and we actually communicate with the others, it gets reflected. So it has to have the whole dimension of communication with everyone in the ecosystem. Here, through these processes of the Gandhian approach and what the different Gandhian scholars were talking and our different workshops, we have tried to develop these elements of non-violent communication. Also here at this stage, I would like to say, we have done numerous workshops all around, having talks, having different literature and all. In fact, before this, I would like to give you two interesting examples on how this model of Gandhian approach to non-violent communication has been taking up. A year and a half back, I had the opportunity to take some sessions on conflict transformation for one of the leading universities of Indonesia, and one of these students was from Nigeria, Andrew. So Andrew is staying in northern Nigeria. And in Nigeria, they have what they call vigilantes. Like we have this whole idea of home guards here. So the vigilantes are supposed to help the, police. So over the years, if you read the literature, they've become very violent. Like if they pick up a pickpocket, if they catch a pickpocket, they will beat him blue and black before handing over to the police. So our friend Andrew has conducted more workshops for more than 270 vigilantes, and in some of the police stations they have these vigilante boards, and these police stations have become they are now making it compulsory that only those who have taken part in these training programs on non-violent communication, which is essentially this Gandhian model, they can be part of the vigilantes boards. Also, interestingly enough, almost 2 months back, we have this course material which is also, if you go to the official UN website, it is there also. There is a link to our organizational website, our course material. Almost a month and a half back, this person from Yemen, I can tell you Yemen is one of the most conflict zone in the world, most violent places. So these people actually translated this whole course material into Arabic and sent to me. I was quite amazed because I can't read Arabic. So then I shared with some people and they said that's amazing because and there are almost 20-25 students who are taking up this whole thing. So that's very important, how we assimilate. That is important. And here I would like to say that if today, I decide that I will become a non-violent communicator, it's never going to be. What we have to do is basically we need to nurture, there should be utmost sincerity on our part to practice non-violent communication, whether at our own self, with our own self, with our family members, institutions and the society at large. That's the important thing. It has to come from practice. It has to come from deep, sincere assimilation. So the first element is complete lack of violence in the way we communicate with others, be it verbal, non-verbal, our thoughts and ideas. The second important element is the intrapersonal level, the intrapersonal communication. As I said, the very first, peace within oneself, peace in the world. If my intrapersonal communication is dysfunctional, if it is an unhealthy communication ecosystem within myself, then I can't do much. Like as we started with the meditation, how we calm ourselves, how we become focused, that's so very important. So in that context, like recently we did a very interesting study with a friend of mine. Of course, we have written that paper on non-violent intrapersonal communication. How even if there is a serious problem of trauma in our lives, how still we can maintain constructive intrapersonal communication. That is a challenge for every one of us, because if we start withering away, then our whole life will fall apart. So that is the challenge each one of us has. Then, very important, human values and the principles of humanism in our communication efforts. Very important. In today's world, we find a lot of young people, very bereft of possibly values systems. So how, even in our communication process, we can instill that principles of humanism and human values. That is something very important aspect of nonviolent communication. Use of appropriate and positive language. Like I gave you the example of our friend Shantam. How you can use positive language to connect with the other people. Use of positive, because in today's world of the social media, what happens is that like especially say for instance in Facebook, someone have passed away and without even thinking we will click like. How can I like the demise of a person? That is beyond my understanding. Also in this era of social media, what has happened is that you see there is what we can say it is like a frozen communication. There is no heart-to-heart communication. There is no soul-to-soul communication. It has become very mechanical. No, that feeling, the emotions is not there. And because of that social media, like it is all dependent on likes and unlike and those emojis, and that's it. So that heart-to-heart interaction is missing. So how do we instill, especially amongst young people, use of positive language and appropriate language is something very, very critical. Expansion of our emotional vocabulary, extremely important, because sometimes what happens is that we don't know how to express ourselves, and if we don't know how to express ourselves, what happens is that we overreact. We don't know what to say, how to say, and because that really causes a lot of problems, especially in relationships. So how we can expand our emotional vocabulary is something very important. So in fact, during the workshops, especially if we do workshops instead of these kind of lectures, we ask the participants to do some of these exercises. Here I share with you this very powerful quote of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Language is very powerful. Language does not just describe quality. Language creates the reality it describes. We should try to take responsibility of our action, words, and feelings and not blame others for these. Avoidance of stereotypes is another important element of nonviolent communication. The whole notion of in-groups and out-groups. Also, for instance, very simple example. Say, for instance, we are going in the street and there is a pickpocket. And, our stereotypes, there are few street urchins around, तो पहला reaction होगा, इसी ने pocket मारा होगा. That is the stereotypes, no? So, in our communication, also these kind of stereotypes, seep in. And that leads to a dysfunctional communication ecosystem. So how we can avoid some of these deep-rooted stereotypes? Say persons with disabilities, how we talk to them. Use of those kind of words and languages which hurts the other should be avoided, and these kind of stereotypes is something which is wrong actually. Power of empathy, extremely critical here. As we know that in this world with so much of, our pursuit for our goals and materialistic, the whole notion of crass materialism and all, probably can we say that, seems to be empathy deficit in the world. We probably have lost the art and science of being empathetic, because human nature is essentially empathic in nature. Human nature is something peaceful in nature. I remember that famous, if you all remember, 1988, UNESCO convened a meeting of some of the top scientists and philosophers across the world, and to discuss whether human nature was violent or human nature was peaceful. And if you remember, the Seville Declaration said human nature is essentially, not violent. It is because of the environment that we're living in, the pressures that we are following, that is the reason why we are. So how have we lost the art and science of being empathetic? That is the critical question. And how we can develop that skills of empathy, that latent skills of empathy that we have, how we can ensure that it gets highlighted. Importance of compassion again, so very important, understanding the sufferings of others. And expression of gratitude. The more we thank the other person, that is so very important, for growth of human beings. If you read that beautiful book of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and his conversation with Archbishop Desmond Tutu, The Joy of Happiness, which talks about the more you express gratitude, the greater your growth is as a human being. So, and kindness in communication. You see all these altruistic tendencies, empathy, compassion, kindness, gratitude. So also we know that these are linked to the neurosciences of the brain. The more we practice this, it leads to greater reduction of stress and contributes to our well-being. And that's so very important. So can we instill some of these principles, and can we practice it as part of our communication process? Because we are going to benefit when we are practicing that. We are going to evolve as human beings. We are going to able to connect and deepen our relationships with whomsoever we are having. Another important aspect of non-violent communication is flexibility and openness in our communication. If we go back to the freedom struggle, even at the height of the freedom movement, Mahatma Gandhi was keeping his channels of communication with the Britishers even then. What happens is, in situations of conflicts, we tend to harden our position. We feel that we are correct, the other is wrong. Probably it leads to a situation we are not flexible. It leads to a situation where there is a complete breakdown of communication. And that leads to the destruction of relationships. So how, through practice, we can, be more open, be more flexible in our communication processes. Another important critical aspect of non-violent communication is connecting with needs of others. How a person is reacting because of certain reasons. I will give you an example, very interesting one, which was shared by, I was having this session for judicial officers, and the session was chaired by a very senior honorable judge of the Delhi High Court. And she gave a very interesting example of this. She said that when she was a junior judge, there was a case of a brother and a sister in the court, and that was a litigation. So she realized that why don't we see if there can be some mediation possible. After all, bhai or behan ka ye serious litigation jo ho raha hai. Then she called that lady to her chamber, and she said that she started talking to that lady. You see, most of the time, conflict starts from a very micro level, and if it is not managed at the micro level, it may go big. So this honorable judge said that she realized that this lady who was older than the brother, this lady felt that she was not adequately respected by her brother and her sister-in-law. And that was a small little issue which had grown into a big one, and they were there in the court. So how we can connect with the needs of others is very, very important, because at the surface level, probably you might be, my friend might be very angry with me, but I don't know why that. But if I start looking at the, beneath the surface, at a deeper level, there might be some very important reason because of which she or he is behaving in that particular manner with me. And if I'm able to unearth that, much of the problem that is there will be, can be constructively handled. Of course, then active and deep listening skill, and how listening skills enables us human beings to grow as individuals, grow as a society. Because in today's world we find that, probably again we are losing that art of listening to the other person. Because if I listen to you and you listen to me, that means we are respecting each other. That's the mundane level, how we can promote respect for each other, mutual tolerance for each other by listening to each other, understanding each other. Very important aspect of element of non-violent communication, avoidance of moralistic judgments. Again, most of the times, many times rather, we fall into this trap. कुछ हुआ and we jump into conclusion, इसी ने किया होगा, आप तो बेकार है. Like sometimes, as teachers, that again happens. किसी स्टूडेंट ने मार्क्स कम आया तो टीचर ने तुरंत बिना सोचे बोले, अरे तुम तो कुछ, तुम्हारे बस की बात नहीं है, कुछ नहीं कर सकते, you are zero. And that demotivates moralistic judgment. In fact, one famous Western scholar on non-violent communication, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, says that judgmental communication is actually life alienating. No, it demotivates. Just think of a situation, someone passing a judgment on you, and you get so badly demotivated. Whereas on the other hand, if we are able to, like say the teacher says, for instance in the school, in the classroom, if the student is not able to do a maths, say some solution, then the teacher says, okay, fine, I know you are not able to do, but let us try to understand and learn this together. It pumps up the student. So instead of being judgmental, we are motivating the other person. So that brings us to very, very important aspect of non-violent communication. Friends, these were some of these important elements of non-violent communication. All of them are equally important. They are interconnected and interwoven, and it's such an important challenge for each one of us to imbibe them, at least some aspects of it, in our daily lives, and also in many of the institutions that one talks and discusses. We say that it's so very important how we can integrate these principles, of course more encouraging at the individual level, but also at the institutional level, so that we grow, we all grow together. So in fact, many a times what we find ourselves are in is that, we have to handle difficult conversations. In fact, there is one particular word I've given to, especially in the institutional context. Possibly, in institutions में होते हैं कुछ लोग जो rumor फैलाते हैं, कुछ को अच्छा लगता है कि कोई कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को और बढ़ा दे, कोई कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो रहा है ऑफिसेस में, इंस्टीट्यूशंस में, यूनिवर्सिटीज़, कॉलेज, हर जगह ऐसे लोग होते हैं, हमारे फैमिलीज़ में होते हैं, उनको बहुत अच्छा लगता है कि कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को और, जिसको कहते हैं उसमें फ्यूल टू द फायर. सो इनफैक्ट एक वर्कशॉप हो रहा था मिनिस्ट्रीज़ का, ऑफिसर्स का, तो मैंने कहा कि उनको कि इसका टर्मिनोलॉजी कोई था नहीं, तो मैंने कहा कि कैन वी गिव द टर्म कॉन्फ्लिक्ट कैटलिस्ट्स, जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को और ज़्यादा बढ़ावा दे सकते हैं. So these conflict catalysts, I think, can contribute to greater conflict, and it's so difficult to have such conversations with these kind of people. Like sometimes हम लोगों को बहुत difficulty होती है. We don't know really how to handle such people. We get simply, कि हो कैसे हम handle करें. So here is a big challenge on how we can use the various tools and strategies that we discussed of non-violent communication to handle such difficult people and difficult conversations. Because हर समय, हर इंस्टीट्यूशन, हर फैमिली, घर पे ऐसे सिचुएशंस होते हैं. ऐसा कभी कोई इंस्टीट्यूशन या फैमिली हो ही नहीं सकता है जहाँ पे इस तरह का सिचुएशन नहीं होगा, क्योंकि आखिर जैसे कि हमने कहा कि वी आर ऑल ह्यूमन बींग्स, वी हैव ऑल डिफरेंट नेचर, वी हैव ऑल डिफरेंट पर्सपेक्टिव्स. इवन हमारा एज अ इंडिविजुअल लेवल हमारा पर्सपेक्टिव्स कीप ऑन चेंजिंग. अभी जो मेरा पर्सपेक्टिव है हो सकता है 6 महीने के बाद बिल्कुल अलग हो. सो in that context, how we can handle use of non-violent communication from as part to do conflict de-escalation, that is something very important. How we can promote it as a tool of conflict de-escalation, whether in our families, at our individual levels and institutional levels. We all need to introspect, we all need to look at some of these elements and try to see. Also, very importantly, conflict strategy of conflict resolution. क्योंकि कई बार जब झगड़े में हमको लगता है अगर मैंने aggressively fight करके जीत लिया तो I feel that I am the victor. But actually, as Mahatma Gandhi had said and all great philosophers, हर एक धर्म जो हमें सिखाती हैं कि कभी aggressiveness या violence से कुछ चीज हासिल करोगे तो that is very short-lived. What is important is through love, through peaceful methods, through non-violent methods, how we can ensure that this resolution of the strategy. Because the goal, as Mahatma Gandhi said, that in any form of resolution of conflict is a transformation of relationships. ये नहीं कि कोई dispute हुआ तो हम लोग बस बात करना खत्म हो गए, relationship खत्म हो गए. The challenge is how we can transform our relationships. That is something critical, and that is the importance of human nature. Of course, it's a very powerful tool for anger management. In fact, जब हम students के साथ ये workshop करते हैं, we request them to do 2 things. We ask them to keep a notebook, 1 page as a gratitude journal and 1 page as an anger journal. And I can tell you, some years back, I was doing this exercise with students of the Delhi Public School, Guwahati. और class 11th के students थे, and you can say, first, it was a proper action research. उसमें क्या किया हमने कि हमने बोला कि पूरा दिन में आप, what are the reasons you get angry with a particular person? How you get angry? What are the reasons you get angry and how you handle such angers? That is something very important. You write in the anger journal. And then after a month I went back to those students, and those students said that the way they handle anger was much more constructive than ever before. Similarly, I was doing this exercise with the students of the National Law University, Ranchi, and we talked about the gratitude journal. And many of these students after a month started messaging me on how they are able to, be more, handle difficult situations, how they were able to improve upon their relationships with their peers, with their teachers, and so on and so forth by maintaining the gratitude journal. So essentially, these are all scientific in nature, and how we can use them as part of our everyday life process is something very important. So, thank you very much. But lastly, I would like to share with you a very interesting thing when we are talking of non-violence and ahimsa. and the importance of Gandhian principle. As we know, as one tries to work with different groups across the world and of course within the country. I will share with you a very interesting example of how important and how Gandhian values are looked at. I had the privilege a year back, one of my book was published, Peace and Non-Violence, and this was a book of dialogues with eminent practitioners of peace from across the world. But one most unique person whom I had the privilege of having a dialogue was this gentleman from Liberia, Christian Volo Bethelson. Unlike, say, many people who might be working in the field of peace and all, he was a person, for 25 years of his life, he was a rebel armed commander before the Liberian Civil War ended in 2005. He was someone who was in the business of killing people for 25 years of his life, you can imagine. So the Liberian Civil War ended in 2005, and as someone who was an armed mercenary, he was out of business. So he thought he will switch over to Ivory Coast to join the rebel army over there, क्योंकि उनका भाई काम था killing people. And in fact, because of these armed conflicts, another rebel commander had actually mowed down several members of his family. You see, destiny. What happened was that he was arms and ammunitions के साथ वो Ivory Coast में he was trying to sneak in. तो उनका जो गाड़ी था, it got struck in the sand dunes over there. और उसके बगल में एक और गाड़ी similarly sand dunes में struck हो गया था. और वो जो गाड़ी था, that was a vehicle of a grassroots peace building organization of Liberia, which is called Everyday Gandhis. And Everyday Gandhis, the members of that, they talked with them, they engaged Christian Volo Bethelson, and now you see he has of course left this whole business of killing people. He gives lectures on non-violence and peace. And very important statement he said. He says, Mahatma Gandhi might be the father of your nation, but for me, Mahatma Gandhi is peace in the world. Thank you very much.
दोस्तों एक बार जोरदार तालियों से स्वागत कीजिए. I would request everyone for a standing ovation for Dr. Vedavyas Kundu ji for his wonderful remarks on how non-violence and peace can improve your personal life and your professional life. Peace within oneself will bring peace in the world. From conflict management to stress management, to anger management, to emotional intelligence, individuals at peace will bring organizations at peace. What a wonderful way to put it across, sir. These have been wonderful management theories in organization behavior and human resource management, and we were in so much need of this from such a scholar. So thank you very much for giving us those wonderful elements of non-violence in communication and how can we be better at doing this. दोस्तों, यज्ञ से जन्मी एक कन्या, बहुत खूबसूरत श्री कृष्ण की मानी हुई बहन, जब उनके मुंह से एक कटु वचन निकलता है, अंधे का बेटा अंधा, महाभारत होता है. तो दोस्तों, कैसे हमारे एक कटु वचन से क्या हो सकता है और नॉन वायलेंस प्रैक्टिस करने पे क्या हमें फ़ायदा होता है. कुंदू जी, बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने हमें इतने बेहतरीन ढंग से समझाया. मैं आमंत्रित करूंगा अध्यक्षीय भाषण के लिए रिवियर ऑनरेबल डॉक्टर विश्वनाथ डी कराड़ साहब को कि हमारा मार्गदर्शन करें इस बेहतरीन विषय पर.
Friends, I have a tremendous sense of satisfaction on listening to the words of wisdom spoken by Honorable Dr. वेदाभ्यास. वाह, बहुत सुंदर है. वेदों पे जिसका अधिकार है, समझो. The way in which he spoke and gave a glimpse of what Mahatma Gandhi really stands for, मुझे बहुत खुशी है उस बात की ये संत ज्ञानेश्वर सभागृह में we have heard many great scholars, thinkers, philosophers, men of science, men of religion, and giving a very unique message. Really speaking, मानवता की दिशा. लेकिन अभी जो बात हुई, अहिंसा परमो धर्मः असा एक विषय आणि जीवो जीवस्य जीवनम. ये कैसे संभव है भाई? एक तरफ बोलते हैं कि जीवो जीवस्य जीवनम और दूसरी तरफ बोलते हैं कि अहिंसा परमो धर्मः. 25-30 साल के पहले मैंने ये हमारे पूज्य साकरे महाराज को पूछा था, ये क्या फिलॉसफी है जीवन की? इस पे ज़्यादा मैं जानता नहीं, लेकिन अभ्यास करने का प्रयास करते हैं. ये एंडाउमेंट लेक्चर सीरीज़ का मकसद ही उसी दिशा में है. फॉर मिस्टर कुंडू साहब, दिस इज़ कॉल्ड एज अ ज्ञानेश्वरा सभागृह, ऑडिटोरियम, जो भी बोलो. बड़ी लंबी कहानी है. इस हॉल की एक पवित्र भाषा भी है जिसका चिंतन आपने कहा कि नॉन वायलेंट कम्युनिकेशन फॉर हार्मोनियस को एग्जिस्टेंस, प्रमोटिंग द कल्चर ऑफ पीस, promoting the human approach, and develop the cordial relations not only between two individuals but in the family itself and in the society. And then we have been saying that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is the ultimate goal, what this Mother India stands for. वेद उपनिषद की भाषा, जिसे कभी कभी गलती से किसी जाति की भाषा बोला जाता है, ये बड़ी सबसे गलती हुई. लेकिन दुनिया, मैंने आज सुबह या कल कहा था कि द होल ऑफ द वर्ल्ड टुडे रिकग्नाइजेस मदर इंडिया, आवर भारत माता, इन 2 names. One is Mahatma Gandhi and another is Gautam Buddha. पंचशील की बात हुई सुबह. आवर स्पीकर स्पोक ऑन दिस पंचशील itself. An embodiment of knowledge divine, ज्ञानेश्वर के बारे में कहा जाता है. जीसस क्राइस्ट को an embodiment of love and compassion. बड़ा सुंदर चिंतन है. कितने साल हुए पता नहीं, लेकिन ये चिंतन, ये वचन गांधी जी का आखिरी वक्त, गांधी जी को गोली मारने के बाद भी एक ही शब्द निकल आया, हे राम. बस 3 बार हे राम, हे राम, हे राम. गुस्सा या अपशब्द निकालने की भावना भी नहीं पैदा हुई. ये कैसे संभव है भाई? ये आज के मेहमान जो है, उन्होंने जिस तरह से बोलने का, बताने का प्रयास किया, दैट्स अ ग्रेट इंडिकेशन ऑफ हिज ओन प्योरिटी ऑफ माइंड, प्योरिटी ऑफ थॉट एंड प्योरिटी इन एक्शन. वी हैव बीन ऑलवेज कॉलिंग दिस एज अ डेवलपमेंट ऑफ अ विनिंग पर्सनैलिटी. ये कैसे होता है? ये शायद ऐसा बोलना ठीक नहीं. मन की दिशा और दशा क्या है? आत्मा का स्वरूप क्या है? वेयर फ्रॉम ही हैज़ कम, इसके माता पिताजी कौन थे, कैसे थे? शायद उनका आशीर्वाद है. और गांधी जी की समाधि के बगल में जो गांधी भवन है, गांधी आश्रम, गांधी दर्शन, वहाँ 25-30 साल के काम करने के बाद ये बन जाता है. मुझे इतना ही आज ऐसे लगता है कि अभी हमारे भाई लोग हैं बोलने वाले, एंड वी विल हैव अबाउट 3 to 4 questions now. Any one of you who would like to ask some question to our guest today, it's open for you. But tell the name and just a brief question. No more discussion, no more speech. Please.
There is a saying in Yoga Sutras that if you hold
Can you hold the mic?
ahimsa,
Ruikar, mic asadal.
if you hold ahimsa to the fullest extent, it's impossible for anyone to have a violent thought around you. Ahimsa spreads from heart to the whole environment. Any comment?
Well, yeah.
Thank you very much. Definitely, what ahimsa actually it starts from our inner self. Unless and until the ahimsa that we practice comes from the inner self, just talking about ahimsa or thinking and doing something is not enough. It has to come from deep within ourselves to evoke a real non-violent action. In fact, some years back, some of the group of students together, some young students, rather school students, they started working on this whole idea called non-violent footprints, something akin to the carbon footprints. Now, how much non-violent we are during the course of the day. Like, there will be so many activities and so many people with whom we interact during the course of the day. Can it be an exercise in self-introspection while we are retiring to bed, how much non-violent we were during the course of the day? So they developed this whole interesting concept and indicators of non-violent footprints. If anyone are interested, I can share with them through email or any other mode. So I think that has to come from deep within ourselves.
Yes, anyone else?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
This question is out of curiosity and not at all a sarcasm. As you told, in Nigeria, for vigilantes, they undergo a certification in order to be vigilante. Do our MPs and MLAs also undergo this kind of certification? Or if not, is there any possibility that this could be integrated in our system?
I think sir could take the leadership in having some sessions, and we would love to do under his guidance.
Thank you. Anyone else, please?
Because very difficult to approach them.
Sir, Namaste ji. Myself, Dr. Sin Pathan, working with Professor Karad Sahab. Whether the food habit can play some role in non-violence, violence communication?
Sorry?
Food
Food
habits.
habit.
Food habits.
Whatever the person eats.
Your behavior.
Okay. To be very frank, I really, I'm not competent enough to answer that. Like, I don't know, like whether it has or not any scientific, so I think I would be a wrong person. Possibly you are saying that if, say, someone is a vegetarian, someone, but you see, I have to confess, I'm a Bengali, and Bengalis are fish-loving people. So I take my fish. So I don't know whether food habit has any.
Rather, Pathan himself knows the answer.
Yeah.
जैसा खावे अन्न वैसा हुए मन, सीधी बात है. That has been proved beyond doubt, possibly. जब आइंस्टाइन बोलता है कि मेरा पेट कोई, it's not a graveyard of animals. He was a vegetarian. Newton, the same way. वो बोले भाई मेरा पेट कोई ये मुर्दे गाड़ने की जगह नहीं है वो. अनेक बातें हैं उसके बारे में, लेकिन certainly there has been a certain scientific proof. जैसा अपन बिहेव करते उस पर असर होता है उसका. क्योंकि मैं मेरी बात बताता हूँ अभी कि जीवन में किसी मच्छर को भी ऐसा धक्का लगने की छाती नहीं होती, लेकिन लड़ाई होती है तो मैं तो तलवार से किसी को काट भी सकता हूँ. मऊ में ना होने आमी विष्णुदास कठिन वज्रास भेदु ऐसे. ये वचन है संत तुकाराम महाराज का. ये नेचर है. सारी दुनिया में जो भी लोग मानवता के लिए कार्य किए, गांधी जी की बात छोड़ो, उनके बारे में बोलना, उनका जीवन, उनकी जीवन भर की बर्ताव की बातें, बोलने की बातें, नम्र झाला भूता त्याने कोंडिले अनंता. विनम्रता ये सबसे बड़ा सुंदर लक्षण है, और टीचर के लिए तो ये बहुत ज़रूरी है. ये कहता हूँ मैं आपको. घर में, अपने फैमिली में, कोई इंस्टीट्यूशन में भी जब समझ तो लो. पहले भारतीय लोगों को क्वेश्चन पूछे बगैर उसको समझने के पहले उत्तर दिया जाता है. ये पहली बार मैं जब इंग्लैंड गया, मुझे याद आता है कि फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम आई ट्रैवल टू यूके, ब्रिटेन. सुबह 5 बजे अनाउंसमेंट शुरू हुआ कि विद इन हाफ एन आवर विल बी लैंडिंग एट द एयरपोर्ट ऑफ हीथ्रो, लंदन. मैं जाग उठा तो मेरे मन में आया कि भाई अभी मैं पहली बार जिस देश ने मेरे देश पर 150 साल राज किया है, कैसी भूमि होगी वो, कैसे लोग होंगे, इतने दूर से आकर सारी आधे दुनिया पे भी राज किया और मेरे भारत पे भी राज किया. तो आई वॉज वेरी क्यूरियस एंड लिटिल बिट इमोशनल about that event of landing that soil of Great Britain. And by the time the plane landed, I got down and I started traveling by a train to the hotel. It was far off. मैंने देखा कि सामने की सीट पर कोई लड़के और लड़कियां बैठी थी. They were having a very debaucherous behavior in front of all people. पहली बार मैं देख रहा हूँ तो मुझे लगा कि जिस देश ने इतना किया तो ये कैसे हो सकता है. देन आई वेंट टू इम्पीरियल कॉलेज लंडन, एंड आई मेट द हेड ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट. आई आस्क्ड हिम अ क्वेश्चन, बट वन थिंग वाज सो ग्रेट दैट व्हेन आई वेंट टू हिम, मैकेनिकल इंजीनियरिंग हेड ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट, आई जस्ट वांटेड अ कप ऑफ टी और वाटर. So he got up first, went to the side room and brought a water for myself. There was no peon, one side. But I asked him a question, my friend, can you tell me, I saw some most debaucherous and vulgar behavior while traveling from London airport to your place. And अभी देख रहा हूँ कि how your country ruled the half the world. He said, Professor Karad, it was not the British people who ruled the world, it was the Oxford and Cambridge which ruled the world. जो सीख होती है ऑक्सफोर्ड और कैम्ब्रिज में जो सिखाया जाता है, दैट वाज द विनिंग पार्ट ऑफ इट. थिंकिंग देखो कैसी है, सोच कैसी है. तो मेरे ख्याल से ये स्पीकिंग या वायलेंट स्पीकिंग और नॉन वायलेंट स्पीकिंग गोज टू द रूट्स ऑफ हाउ योर बिहेवियर इज डेवलप्ड. बहुत लंबी बात हो सकती है, लेकिन मैं धन्यवाद देता हूँ आपको कि आपने मुझे बोलने का मौका दिया. हाँ, तो मेरे ख्याल से नाउ.
Good evening, sir. So, as you just said, like the importance of writing in non-violent communication, like how we can reframe and rephrase our sentences. So, I was wondering, like, if there are any other small habits that we can integrate and adapt in our daily routine, so that it becomes a habit later on, so that we can communicate non-violently. Are there any habits like that?
Of course, you see, we discussed about the 5 pillars of Gandhian non-violence. I think these are the very basic things that we can do, and they are most simple. Many people, places I go with the students, they feel that Gandhian principles are very difficult to follow in today's world. But is it difficult to be respectful for each other? Is it difficult to have a greater understanding of each other's point of view and perspectives? So these are some very basic things if we can start with, not at all complicated but very simple, we can make a lot of difference. And as I said, that it needs real utmost sincerity on our part on like if I think I will do but there is no sincerity, I don't think we may be able to actually practice non-violent communication. So it comes from deep within, I suppose.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vedabhyas Kunduji, for your answers for that interactive session. Now we will move on towards the vote of thanks, and for that I will invite Professor Dr. Dheeraj Singh, the Dean of Media and Journalism.
Our beloved founder, respected, revered Professor Dr. Vishwanath Karad, Honorable Dr. Vedabhyas Kundu, Dr. Milind Patreji, Professor Chaturvedi, Dr. Anamika Biswas, and Dr. Ravi Sahu. It's my great honor and pleasure to present this vote of thanks to this wonderful discussion that we had on non-violent communication. And it's in fact appropriate that me, as the director of the School of Media and Communication, is presenting the vote of thanks at this occasion. I'd just like to bring to the notice of our respected guest, Professor Kundu, that the School of Media and Communication has been doing a lot in these times, especially when the media itself has taken the role of conflict catalyst, especially the electronic media, which is enabling violence and violent communication in today's times. Our School of Media and Communication has been taking great steps and strides under the guidance of our beloved founder. We recently announced Journalism for Peace Awards, which gave 3 honorable citations and awards to journalists who are working in the field of increasing communication, increasing understanding, and working in fields of conflict resolution that otherwise mainstream media has not been concentrating on. And we honored and gave these awards to really, really small journalists working in really small towns, bringing about doing the job of media and communication that was earlier mandated for journalists to do. With these words, I'd like to bring this, the 5th session of the Endowment Lecture Series to a close. Thank you all for your wonderful participation in this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dheeraj Singh Sahab. Before we conclude, I will request the technical team to play the universal anthem of Pasaidan. I request everyone to please rise.
आता विश्वात्मके